that we can't go one by one and for you to remember it. So I want you to walk away with a tool today rather than trying to memorize everything. For some reason, there we go. Oh, I see. What the objectives are for the day. Actually, we're only going to be doing this for 1 hour. And what I want you to do is to, in my particular aspect of it, I know that this is horticulture, but I'm a forester, and so I'm going to be talking to you about Kentucky native trees. I would like for you to learn how to identify those. And also, it's going to be in their winter garb. And that means they ain't got no leaves and they ain't got no fruit on them. So it's going to be a little more interesting doing this. Secondly, there may be a number of individuals out there that feel comfortable in identifying. That's fine. I'd like to know who you are. And the thing is I'll explain to you how your mind is working to identify these things. Thirdly, I want to send you out of here today with the fundamentals, the tools to learn how to identify trees, not to have to memorize trees or plants and go from there. Also, not only learn how to identify trees and plants, but what the heck, why don't we learn how to identify animals too? Once you learn the process of identification, you can apply it to anything, okay? All right, and finally, there is going to be a test or two. I don't know if anybody told you that. I don't know that anybody knew that before we started this, but there'll be a test or two. You won't be graded on it, but it will be a learning process in which to take this all in. And, you know, since we're doing everything else, why not learn a little bit of Greek and Latin too? So we've got a big day planned ahead of us. We've got less than 50 minutes in which to do it. And so why don't we get started in how to identify trees? The thing is there are many, many species of trees here in the state of Kentucky. And how is it that we're going to learn how to identify them? I think it might be better, or not be better, but we need to step back here and find out exactly how valuable this resource is to the state of Kentucky. Half of the state is forested. There are actually states out there that don't have as big a percentage as what we do in forest. There are some states that have much more forest, but half of the state is forested. Most of that is in the eastern part. There's 100 important forest trees that a forester needs to know to recognize different aspects of the forest itself. And there are nearly 50 commercially important trees. So understanding how to identify is very important for a forester. Now, there's two pictures in front of you. On the left-hand side of the screen is a picture of a forested scene. And on the right-hand side, there is a picture of a group of people. To me, both of these pictures are identical. They are totally identical. And the reason I say that is, in both pictures, there are individuals, and those individuals are different. And so to move forward from this particular point, we need to learn a word. We're looking for a word that helps in distinguishing or identifying an individual. And like I said, the individuals on the left-hand side are the trees in the forest, and the individuals on the right-hand side are these individual people that you see. So again, I'm looking for a word that is going to help, that we're going to use for the rest of this session, that identifies an individual. Starts with a C, and it's a great big long word. And it's not too hard, and I'm going to pop it up on the screen. Characteristics. What we want to do are identify characteristics in learning how to identify. Now, I'm bringing this picture up because I wanted to show some of the characteristics that are actually on this picture. First of all, over on the right-hand side, we see these three individuals. Their skin tone is different. There's different shades of white and black there, just with those three individuals there. Let's slip over to the left-hand side of the screen. These two individuals over here, the lady with the blue sweater on and the gentleman with the gray sweater. Notice that the lady is actually 8 inches taller than what she normally is. So height is a very important characteristic when we're identifying people. The length of hair is very important. The color of hair is also important. The color of eyes, the weight, the sex of people. All of these are characteristics that we use to identify individual people. What we're going to do is to learn the characteristics of trees to learn the process to identify them. But the individual on the right have individual characteristics the same as the individuals on the left. And what I wanted to do was this particular tree right here, it's a slippery elm. Don't worry too much about it. But what I wanted to do was to show you the leaf of this particular tree and the characteristic words that we use, foresters use, to identify it. Now, we don't just verbally use these words, we run them through our minds as we're identifying trees. But I want to show you how these characteristics respond to humans. A slippery elm, this is the leaf of it. It is a simple leaf, and that is because I know that this is the bud right here, and this is the leaf itself. It is elliptical in shape. It has a serrated margin. On the left-hand side, you can see these saw teeth. This is what we refer to as serrated margins. It has an asymmetrical base on it. Say that 7 times. And asymmetrical simply means that the bases don't come together. The green does not come together like you'll find out in other leaves. And that is a characteristic, asymmetrical. And the last one we'll talk about is the secondary veins. The primary vein runs right down through the middle. But the secondary veins, notice that they come into the primary, but they never meet one another from across the street. So these are the characteristical terms that we use in identifying a leaf. Now, what I did was I turned on the yellow characteristics that we identify people with. So when you identify people, you use characteristics. The same thing we do with with trees, is we use characteristics. And that's what we're here today to learn, are what are those characteristics that we use in the wintertime, and how can we apply it to identify trees. This is just a collage of pictures, just showing you very quickly that not every tree looks alike. Trees within the species do, but when you're talking about different species, they look different for one reason or another. When I'm talking to people and I say what the best time of the year is to learn how to identify trees, it's not wintertime. The reason I say that is because in the summertime you have many more characteristics. You have the leaves that are down here in the bottom right-hand corner, and if it's later in the season, you'll probably have fruits that are visible. But wintertime is possible. There's no problem with identifying. It's just that there's more characteristics in the summer than what there are in the wintertime. This is nothing more than a collage of barks. A lot of people have asked me, can you use bark to identify trees? I normally don't, well, yes, you use barks, but it's probably the hardest way to identify a tree, by applying only bark characteristics first. The thing to do is, we're going to be talking about the twig here momentarily, and it's the easiest way to identify in the winter. Okay, so this process of identifying trees, there is a logical sequence to identifying the correct tree. There is a logical sequence, and we have an instrument, and it's referred to as a dichotomous key. Now, here we are, we're going to be getting into some of our Greek and some of our Latin right here. I'd like to break this word down, but remember this word is called a dichotomous key. It's at the top of your paper, and this would be a word that you could probably bring up at the dinner table this evening, talking about dichotomous keys. But let's take a look. What a dichotomous key is, it's something that you use when you don't have a mentor And let me take a moment here and explain what I mean by that. Like I said at the very beginning, that the learning tree identification was very difficult with all these terms. Monday through Friday was fine because there was always a mentor that you can call upon, a teacher, a classmate, whatever it might be. But on the weekends, when you have time to go out and learn how to identify, you didn't have anybody. I did not have a dichotomous key. They never taught us that. It was total memorization. But I totally believe that having a methodology is better than having a mentor sometimes. So here's our Greek, and dicho is two, and the word to cut is tenon. Okay, so these are the two Greek words coming together to make a dichotomos. And then in our late Latin and our English endings that we had to put together, we came up with dichotomous. And you will simply find out that it's two. You will find out that whenever you use a dichotomous key, di means two, we are going to have two friendly things looking at us at one time. We'll get to that in just 1 second. So this dichotomous key, it is a process to identify an organism based on a series of choices. And just like the word dichotomous was identified for you a moment ago, it's two choices at one time. You will be presented two choices, and I think an example comes up here in a moment. And what you're going to do is take the best of those two choices. This is the book that we're going to use. I have it, if you're able to see me, this is the book, the one that's on the screen, and here's the one in my hand. It's almost, that picture is actually bigger than what the actual one is. It was designed to put into your back pocket. And this is the one that I promote a lot, simply because it's so easy to use once you learn the process. And it usually gets you where you need to be in the least amount of time. I will mention that I gave this program a number of years ago, and there was a lady after the program was over, she came up and she said, I've had that book sitting in my desk drawer for 5 years, and she said, I had no idea what to do with it. And so after somebody explained it to her, she felt a lot better about what was going on. When you open this book, you'll find out that it is good for the eastern United States. In fact, actually a little bit more. It is a very good book for a low price. This is the dichotomous key that I was speaking about. So if you open the book, don't worry about what the words are. Just recognize the fact that every time you are sent somewhere, there are two choices. And where these 4 blue arrows are, you will notice that there's two choices, and what you do is you're going to take the best choice and move forward. And we're actually going to do one of these later on. But recognize the concept that a dichotomous key is taking the best choices and moving forward. Now, two broad categories of trees, and they are right there for you. On the right-hand side is the conifer. It is the cone-bearing trees. And on the left-hand side is the broadleaf. And the broadleaves are simply those trees that normally lose their leaves in the wintertime. Broadleaves lose their trees. Conifers retain them in most cases, but they are cone-bearing. And I know that a lot of people out there feel that they want to know what these two trees are. The one on the left, I think everybody probably knows what it is. It has 3 different leaves existing at one time, and that is the sassafras, and the one on the right-hand side is the eastern hemlock. The sassafras grows throughout the state. The eastern hemlock is basically found in the eastern part of the state. Now, I will mention here, since a lot of you are interested in the horticultural aspect, we can take any of these trees and move them and plant them in our front yards, but that is not where they naturally occur. What we're doing today, what I'm doing today, are talking to you about forestry-related trees and where they naturally occur. We'll mention also, I think the largest tree in the largest sassafras tree in the United States, I think, is in Kentucky, out in middle Kentucky, but I believe it's the United States' largest tree. So, two broad categories that we're talking about. They are conifers and sassafras. Now, if your screen is like my screen, it's covered over, but what we're doing is the top word there is conifers. And we're going to be looking at all of the conifers here in the state of Kentucky, all the naturally occurring conifers in Kentucky. And the way we identify the conifer, the tree that we have up here now, is the cedar. And the cedar leaf itself is very, very small. Where my arrow is pointing, we're talking about maybe 5 or 10 leaves that are right there. They are very, very small. It's a flattened needle, and I'm sure here in central Kentucky, cedars grow everywhere. And if you've ever handled them, you know what it's like. If you don't have gloves on, at the end of the experience, you will have red dots all over your hand from the needles from the cedar tree. Now what I want to do is talk about the other conifers. And usually when we do that, we can break it down into these categories of they have either singly borne needles, or they're needles groups of 2, groups of 3, groups of 5. And these groupings, these bundles, are called fascicles. And I have written that word on your sheet, on this winter identification sheet that I have for you. There's 4 words down in the right-hand corner that I have written. And a fascicle is nothing more than a bundle of structures. And in this case, it's a bundle of needles. And again, in Kentucky, it's either born 1 is single, there's 2s, there's 3s, there is no 4, but there are 5s. Hemlock and bald cypress. Hemlock and bald cypress are 2 conifers that have short needles and singly borne. And you can see them here, and they're probably, I'm going to say, 1 inch long in both cases. Eastern hemlock is in the eastern part of the state, bald cypress in the western part of the state, usually with its feet deep in water. The bald cypress and the hemlock, 1 needle. Spruce also has 1 needle. And I will say this, that for the spruce, you can only find it naturally occurring in 1 location, and that is up on Black Mountain. And you're going to say to me, well, I have 1 in my front yard. That's because you've introduced it there. And there are a number of different spruces, but what's very interesting is you can take that 1 needle off of there. Again, it's a 1-needled conifer. Take that 1 needle, and if you roll it in your fingers between your index and thumb, you will actually feel the 4 sides of that needle. So in a conifer, in the spruce, you can roll it and feel it. Can't do that with a hemlock, and you can't do it with a bald cypress. They will just sit there. But with the spruce, you can roll that in your fingers. So if you have a spruce out in your front yard, after this is over, go out and give it a try. 2 needles. 2 needles in the fascicle of needles. The Virginia pine. You can see right here, I hope that this is showing up my mouse. This is a pair of Virginia pine needles. We refer to them as short and twisted is the best definition, and they're probably 2 to 3 inches long. And again, you don't have to learn this. The book is going to tell you all that. But the Virginia pine has 2 short and twisted. Now here's the pitch pine. The pitch pine, many of you may not be familiar with it, but it's found on ridge tops. It usually grows where it's relatively dry. There's 3 needles, and they are relatively long, probably 3-4 inches long. Again, don't worry about taking notes on all this. It'll all come together here at the end for you as to how it works. Now, I've put up there short leaf, 2 and 3 needles. What that is on any one branch, you can have a fascicle with 2, or you can have a fascicle with 3. It is a tree identifier, the teacher tree identifier's best question on a test, because what they'll do is they'll take you out to a short leaf and they'll say, okay, what is this tree? You'll take a look at it and you will look down there and you'll come to the first group. If it's 2 needles, you'll say it's a Virginia. If it has 3 needles, you'll say it's a pitch pine. You have to look up and down the stem and make sure that you're looking at the true scientific observation of, on pitch, it'll be only 3. On Virginia, it's only going to be 2, but on shortleaf, I don't have a picture of it. They look very similar to both of these. On the shortleaf, you'll have bundles of 2s and bundles of 3. And the last, I'm sorry, I'm going to throw one more in here. This is not a naturally occurring tree. It has been naturalized, the loblolly pine. It has 3 needles, and it's found in western Kentucky. It was brought in here for pulp production, and it is now naturalized out there in the western part of the state. And you're going to say loblolly and pitch pine have 3 needles on a per fascicle. That's true. But the loblolly pine is much longer. It's probably twice as long as the pitch, and a much softer tree. But again, that would be seen in your description within the book. And the last one we're going to talk about, which is a conifer, and that is the white pine. That is where you have 5 needles per fascicle. It's a bundle where there are 5 needles in that fascicle. A lot of us have holiday trees that have 5 needles on them. It's very soft. That's what's nice about white pine. It's very soft. Now, the bad thing about white pine for bringing into your house during the holidays is if it hasn't been pruned properly, it won't hold your ornaments on the tree. But most people that are selling them for holiday trees know to prune them correctly. So those are all your conifers, and I have that on that sheet right there. Those ones on the top are dealing with conifers. So what that leaves is all broadleaves. This is the last time you're going to see leaves, folks. I just wanted to bring out some more characteristics here before we get into how you identify the broadleaves when they don't have their leaves on it. This particular leaf right here is what we refer to as heart-shaped, and it has a smooth margin. This is the the one with a red bud. Oh, red bud, that's the name of the tree. It had a red bud on it. This is a hackberry. It has saw teeth on it, and this particular one has a sinus and a node on it. This is the white oak in the state of Kentucky, a very important tree. But we're going to move on into broadleaf trees, and we're going to talk about how to identify them without all this green ornamentation on it. Now, when you go to identify a broadleaf, you always, I can't repeat enough, you always look and find the bud first. You have to find the bud first to be able to do any identification. Here's the 2 things that you need to know about the bud. These are the buds right here. I wanted to leave the leaves on so that you can see not only the bud, but also where the leaves are. And here are buds over here, but these 2 pictures are 2 different characteristics. The arrangement of the buds. When they are right across the street from one another, we refer to those as opposite. The arrangement on this particular tree is opposite, all right? And on this one, you do not see a bud across the street from it. These are referred to as alternating. So this is one of the major characteristics that you're going to be picking up today, and that is the first thing you do is look for the bud, and the first thing you do is it an opposite set of buds, or does it alternate on the twig. Okay? Always, always, always look for the bud first. And here's the bud again. And what it's going to do is help us in the identification of these deciduous trees. And what is the bud? It is the location of next year's new buds, location of fruit, location of leaves, and elongation for next year. There's only about 2 weeks in Kentucky that you really don't want to go out and identify trees for the simple reason that the buds have started to elongate, but the leaves have not given enough of their characteristic. And that's usually about the second, and no, it's late April, first week of May is when you're going to have those buds breaking open. But shortly after the leaves are out, they will form these buds, which will give you the characteristic that you need. But the power of this bud is it creates new buds for next year, creates the fruits for this year, it creates the leaves for this year, and it creates that elongation that that tree needs to have to put its head up in for the sunlight. And so that bud is an undeveloped shoot, just like I said, fruits, leaves, and elongation, and occurs at the axis of the stem and the leaf right here. So that's where you look for the bud. All right. So what I've done here is I put a collage of buds up of different species of trees. Don't want you to learn, excuse me, don't want you to learn these species. I want you to see that they're different characteristics. On this one right here, this bud is extremely delicate. It's just like a feather. This is the pawpaw, and it's very, it's like the tip of a paintbrush. It actually is very flexible. There's a bud, and there's a bud also. So this is the bud of that tree. Over here, again, don't worry what the species is, but just note that you have 2 buds. They are opposite, and they are round. This particular bud, it's a huge bud. That's why I have this pen line here, is to show you the extent, the length of this particular bud. It's on a magnolia, but it's probably 3 inches long. On this bud right over here, it's simply a long bud that goes parallel with the stem. Here's 3 more. This particular bud, or this particular tree, has 3 buds on it, and we refer to these as cigar shaped. And this is the American beech, it's a very long, narrow bud. Again, much different than this bud over here that has a point on it. But again, notice that these are opposite one another, where on the beech they were alternating. And not only are they opposite one another, but they're pointed. Let's go back up to this one right here, round. 2 different types of characteristics. And the last one over here that I'm going to show you, this is what we refer to as the duck-billed bud shaped, duck-billed shaped bud. And it is on our state tree. And if going through your mind, you're thinking that the state tree is the Kentucky coffee tree, it is not. The Kentucky coffee tree was our state tree for 2 years, but legislation changed it very, very quickly for a lot of reasons. But it's now the state tree is the yellow poplar tree, the tulip poplar, or the tulip tree, and it has this long duckbill on the end of it. So again, just a collage to show you the different shapes and sizes of buds. So we're going to start talking about broadleaves. And I'm going to go over this one more time, the arrangement of leaves and buds, because it's the most important thing whenever you're identifying that tree. Again, this is the beech, a long, narrow cigar shaped, and you will notice that they are not opposite, they are alternating. And here is a group, these 3 over here. Every time you see one, you see a bud across the street. So these are opposite branching, opposite arrangements of leaves and buds. So leaf off method, this is the tree that we're going to use. It is a winter tree ID book. This one behind it is a Summer. It's written by the same author. It's the summer identification book, but this is the winter one that we're going to be using. And we're going to break it down into two broad categories. The broadleaves, sometimes they keep their leaves on. Most of the trees we find lose them. And the conifer, the cone-bearing ones. So this is where we're headed. The thing is we have already done the conifer, so we don't need to go over those. So we're going to simply get into the characteristics of the twig itself. Most importantly is that the bud on the twig and the location of it is very, very important for winter identification. It helps us decide what that deciduous tree is by identifying the characteristics in and around this bud. First of all, this is referred to as the terminal bud. It is the bud that is shooting straight up, and it's the one that is going to put elongation into a horizontal position. And it's usually, in most cases, much larger than these other buds. That's the terminal bud. Lateral buds, those are the buds that are along the side of the branches, and these will create limbs in the springtime. There will be limbs coming out of here. Those are the lateral buds. Bud arrangement, remember, again, I'm going to repeat this one more time. Bud arrangement is either alternate or opposite. That is important. Leaf scar. Now, whenever a leaf comes off, it is going to leave an indication of where it was. So this black line that you see running around the edge here is the outline of the leaf scar. It's the outside of where that leaf was. It covered that entire area. That is the leaf scar. Lenticels. Lenticels are these small dots that we see on here, and basically they are like the pores on our skin. They let the inner bark breathe, but those are called lenticels. And then the next one is a vein scar. Remember, we had a leaf scar was the outside edge of that. That is the leaf scar. The vein scar is where the veins and arteries of this tree went up into the leaf. And you can see here, there's one here and one here, a vein scar. We'll see more of them momentarily. The pith, sometimes the pith of a tree is very good. The pith of a twig is very good in the use of identification, especially in black walnut, and that's what we have here. Simply have taken the knife, pen knife on a small twig, slit it down the middle, and you have this chambered pith. Most chambered piths on most trees are simply white or null. There's nothing there. And one of the last ones is thorns. There's several trees here in the state of Kentucky. This is the honey locust, and if you've ever run up against one of those things are extremely dangerous. But basically what the thorns are on all trees are modified leaves for protection. And these trees have learned that they needed to change their leaves so that they would be protected from being eaten. And the last characteristic that we're going to be looking at is the Scipio Scar. It's found right at the base of the leaf. Here is, well, this is the leaf stem. Here's the bud. Here's the Scipio Scar. Bud, Scipio Scar, bud, leaf, Scipio Scar right here. And here's the terminal bud. There is the Scipio Scar right there. These folks, the ones that you see on the right-hand side, the ones on the right-hand side are the characteristic that you're going to use to identify all trees in the winter. And we're headed in that direction. But first of all, we have to have a test. This is what a lot of teachers refer to as review by taking a test. So the terminal bud. The terminal bud, is it a bud that has reached its end, a bud that is simply the tip on the branch, or a bud that is designated to produce a flower? At the end, on the branch, or a flower? Terminal bud. A terminal bud is the bud at the end, at the upper end. There is no more. This is the terminal bud. That's a lateral bud. terminal bud. Test question number 2. What is the bud arrangement? Now, I told you we're going to go over this 1,000 times. What is the arrangement of these buds? Here's a bud, there's a bud, there. Okay? We have opposite, pointed, alternate, pith. And what you should have done was said that that is an alternate, C. It is alternating up and down the stem. And you can see on this beech tree, here's a bud, there's a bud, there's a bud, there's a bud, there's a bud. And also you can see that the leaves are alternating also. Test question number 3. What are the features on a stem that are like our own skin pores? Like that of our skin pores. Are they called leaf scars, vein scars, lenticels, or pores? The features on a stem like the skin pores that we have. Lenticels, you can see here some very minor markings for lenticels. On this one, you can see huge lenticels. On this one, you see horizontal lenticels on that particular one. Question number 4, technical term. Technical term. This is one you can use at the supper table tonight. Technical term for a group of needles in a conifer. Cluster, bundle, fascicle, or tufts. And the question is, and I know you all know it, it is a fascicle. Here are 2 conifers. This is the white pine. It has 5 needles in the fascicle. And this is the Virginia pine. And I can see right here, there's 2 needles in that one. That is called a fascicle. Scar. Which scar is this one? We're looking at that scar that looks like a horseshoe. Is it a tree scar, leaf scar, vein scar, butt scar? Tree, leaf, vein, butt. Well, it is a leaf scar. Leaf scar? Vein scar. I'm sorry, vein. It is a vein scar. My whole screen is not up there for me, but I can see vein scar there. This one is diffused within that area. This is the vein scar, and this is a monkey face vein scar that we refer to on some trees. It only has the 3 right there. Okay, and I also wanted to mention to you there is such a thing as a butt scar. A tree can hollow out. Remember that the living part of the tree is just underneath the bark. So as long as the underneath the bark is still alive, this tree will continue to grow. Usually what happens is the center is for support, and a lot of these trees will fall over if they have butt scars, usually developed from forest fires. Number 6, what is the bud arrangement? The bud arrangement is, let's look at for the buds. Okay, here's a bud, there's a bud. They're right across the street from one another. So is it opposite, pointed, alternate, or pith? It is opposite. You are correct. Opposite. Opposite arrangement. Conifer or a broadleaf? I hope we get this one. This is a conifer. Just wanted you to recognize again that there are 2 major subdivisions when you're talking about plants identification. The conifers and the broadleaves. This is a white pine. You can see that there's 5 needles coming out of here, and this is a white oak broadleaf. Final exam question. Final exam question. Now, how many characteristics do you see on here that we can use to positively identify this tree? So we have a twig. Is there only 1 positive ID characteristic? Are there 2, 3, or a minimum 4? Here we go. Let's take a look at this one by one. First of all, we have opposite branching. Okay, here's the opposite buds, the arrangement. Okay, lenticels, we can see these dots all the way up and down here. Again, those are the pores for the tree to breathe with. Number 3, the leaf scar, the outside edge of where that leaf was on there originally. And 4 are the vein scars. So we have a minimum of 4 characteristics to identify this particular tree. Okay, I think I know where we're headed next, and that is we're going to identify an actual tree by using this book. What I mentioned, what I want to show is this particular book that I am showing you right here. This is one of the first pages that you find inside. And notice it's the same words that we just finished using to identify all the characteristics in the winter. So they are there in your book also. Now, this is the tree that we want to identify. A lot of you may understand what it is without going through the process, but I wanted to have a tree that you were familiar with, as well as one that we could identify by using the book. Okay, first of all, I want you to understand these are not leaves. These are thorns. They are thorns, and they are in pairs of two. The bud is in between the thorns. The bud is there and the bud is there. So we are looking at a tree that has a bud in the middle with two thorns on either side of it. It sounds like a song that could be made from there. But those three yellow arrows are pointing towards the buds as well as the pair of thorns on either side. Now, again, we're using this book. This is the page that we will be going to first in the book. I have created a slide over here so that you can continue to see the tree that we are working with. Now, what I love about this book is it says, begin here. What better book is there than to tell you what to start with? Now, the next thing we're going to do is remember a dichotomous key always has two. There's always two things to choose from. And I think that that one says, if this tree is a conifer, right? Again, my screen is kind of cut off there at the top, but if the tree is a conifer or it's not a conifer, we have two choices to begin. It is not a conifer at the bottom, it is a conifer. And here it is over here. This is not a conifer. So what we're going to do is it says go to the next page, but you need to take this icon with you. Because when we get to the next page, which we're going to do immediately, we have to find that icon. So find the icon right there. And the next one it's going to do is it's going to say, are they opposite at the bottom or alternate? After when you read through all that verbiage there, it comes down to, is it opposite or alternate? And over here, here's one, here's one, here's one, here's one. That to me is alternating. So we're going to pick this one, take the icon, go down here, and we pick this one. It says if the entire twig is over a half an inch thick, well, let me just click on that. It is over a half or under a half. And you're going to say, we can't measure it. Well, I'll tell you very quickly that you can see that it doesn't look very robust. But I want you to know that when you buy this book, on the back side, there is a ruler also enclosed in it. So you can actually measure it with your book out there. But I will tell you that this is not, it's not over an inch thick. An inch thick would be maybe a buckeye. That would probably be a good example of that. So it says if it's not over an inch, go to page 9 and look for this icon. So we're going to run to page 9. Here's the icon down here. There's a lot of text here, but to save you from reading all that, it says the leaf scars are large or it doesn't have this combination. There's a lot of characteristics they're looking at here, but one of them is the leaf scars are not large. And here is the leaf scar. That to me is not very large. So I'm going to say that we don't have that combination. Go to the next page and take this icon with you. Here's the icon. And I think the top one says, is there a cluster of buds at the end? So here is the end. It wants to know, is there a large cluster of buds? I'll just tell you right now, if it had a large cluster of buds, it would take you to an oak. But we do not have a large cluster of buds. So we are going to go below and look for this icon. And here's the icon right here. And it says, does it have catkins or does it not have catkins? And you're saying to yourself, what is a catkin? And a catkin is a long hanging seed pod. That is what a catkin is. This does not have a catkin. It has no catkin, so we're going to go to the next page and look for this chicken foot. Next page, chicken foot. There's the chicken foot. Now it wants to know, are there thorns on it or are there no thorns on it? Thorns or no thorns? Folks, if you know what this tree is, or when you find out what it is, you will find out those are thorns. So here's the icon. We drop down here, and it simply repeats the same question over again. Thorns or no thorns? That's their methodology of getting 2 questions at a time. There are thorns, so we have to get this icon down below. Here it is right here. And they want to know if they're sharp or twig-like. Twig-like would be like on an apple or a Bradford pear. Those are not as sharp as what these are. If you were to put that in your hand, you would know it's sharp. So it's saying, let's go to page 20. We're on the last page that you need to be worried about. Here's the icon, and it wants to know how long these thorns are. Remember, I may have a picture here or not, I can't remember, but these are not over 3/4 of an inch. They're probably a 1/2 inch at the most. So being that they're a 1/2 inch in length, we're going to go down below, which is right here, and it wants to know, are they in pairs or are they single? Like here's our original picture, they are in pairs. Here in the book is a picture of the pairs, pairs being side by side, and we can't go any farther because it tells us that it is a black locust. Here's your Latin for the day, folks. Robina pseudoacacia. That is a black locust. So in essence, we're done. We have isolated this particular species of tree simply by going through the process. But look at this. Without us having to go all the way back to the beginning, let's take a look at this tree. Here is another tree. Notice that these thorns are single. They are single and they are long. So I'm going to take us right back. Let me go back to that one more time. Notice on all these pictures, single needles, very long. And you'll probably know what this one is too. I'm just going to run down through here. Let's see, over 3/4 of an inch long. That's going to be our clue. And we want to go below right here. Are the thorns paired or single? And on this particular species that we're looking at, they are singly born and they're over 3/4 of an inch long. So it's an Osage orange. It was just so happened that those 2 trees happened to be close to where I was getting the black locust. And I thought, well, we don't have to do much more to get the Osage orange. So we've just identified 2 trees by using the Dichomous Key and looking at the winter characteristics. And there's the Osage orange. Okay, believe it or not, we are almost at the finish. And that is, the next time you see this scene in front of you, remember this scene. And that is, those people down there in the right-hand corner have characteristics, just like the characteristics that you see in that forest above there. They both can be identified by using some process of identification or process of elimination, and that is the Dichomous Key. Now, I've just taken you through an hour's worth of how to identify a tree by using a resource. This is called iNaturalist, and I encourage you, I have a list of resources here that I'll show you and you should have gotten in the mail. The iNaturalist, when you sign up for this and you turn your locator on your phone and you take a picture of the thing that you want to identify, it can be a tree, an insect, whatever it might be, anything that's out there in nature, it will identify it for you. And I tried this on buckeye the other day. I had picked up a buckeye and it had no leaves on it, of course. And I took a picture of it, and within 15 seconds, it had brought back to me the the uh, the answer of that it was one of the buckeyes. I didn't see if it identified the correct one, but it usually gets you very, very close. 9 times out of 10, it gives you the exact one it is. I was a non-believer in this until about 3 years ago when somebody showed it to me and I used it. Unbelievable. Naturalist, and the resource is, or the resource location is coming up. But take a look at it. It's very, very interesting, and it will help you in identification. Here's the resource list. The book that we were using is called Tree Finder. It was published in 1970. There is a Tree Finder for winter and one for summer. If you go and look at them online, they're probably $5, $6 a piece. And the thing that's going to cost you the most is going to be the shipping. Sometimes you can find these at state parks or nature stores. You can find these. So if you have one close to where you live, you may want to look there first. But if you look on Amazon, you'll find them, and you can get these in a matter of minutes. The Trees and Shrubs it's a Peterson Field Guide, very inclusive. Do not use this one first. It will overwhelm you. This is a very elementary tree key. Here are forest images of simply forest trees. Here's the Naturalist that you can go to and sign up for it. The reason you have to have your locator on is because if it knows approximately your geographical location, it quickly eliminates a lot of other trees. So palm trees wouldn't show up if you had your locator on. And the last two, these are here at the University of Kentucky. And one of them, they both show identification of trees. Laurie Taylor has taken a lot of time to put some trees together with a 5-minute video. So take a look at those. So I know it's late, but I will ask if there's any questions. I do not have the ability to look and see if there's any questions coming at me. If somebody like Faye would like to tell me, I'd be happy to answer whatever I can about questions.
I am not seeing any questions in the chat right now. I'm not sure if you just look real quick, but I don't see any.
Okay.
Lots of excellent presentation. Thank yous.
Okay.
Which I echo. That was really, really excellent. I know it helped me a lot because it's been some time since I've had a winter tree ID class, and that was really, really great. Okay. I like the test thrown in there.
Yes. Can you see this piece of paper, Kay?
Yes, it's blurry. It's blurry, but we can see it.
Okay. Well, basically, this particular one is a roadmap of what we just accomplished, and that is you take a tree. You identify whether it's a broadleaf or a conifer. If it's a conifer, it's one of these. If it's a broadleaf, it's all either alternate or opposite, and you go from there. But the thing that I will suggest to our audience out there, and that is, take a mentor with you. The first couple get very confusing, and you can get confused very quickly. But have that mentor help you. Now, do not let that mentor identify it for you. What you want to do is you go through the process of going through the key, the dichotomous key, and saying, is this the road that I should be taking? And the mentor should simply say yes or no. But what happens is we are all of us in forestry especially, we are notorious. Someone says, could you help me identify this? And what do we as foresters do? We simply say, yes, that is whatever that particular tree is. They don't show them the process of how to get there. So you need to have a dichotomous key, again, very inexpensive, fits in your pocket, and it speaks to you, meaning it doesn't use a lot of technical terms. I gave you those 4 technical terms that I'd like you to use at the dinner table tonight. Dichomous key, fascicle, remember that's the bundle, lenticels, the pores, and the Scipio Scar. So bring that up at the supper table tonight. But if there aren't any other questions, I'm sure people are dropping off by now. The thing that I want to say is thank you so much for coming in and being with us today. Second of all, get your book as quickly as you can and get out there. Be careful that you don't go into your yard, especially if it's a horticulturally designed yard, because there's trees in your yard that won't be in the book. Go to a set of woods and try there first. And again, find a mentor to go with you. I'm going to say this to Faye and everybody else involved. I would be happy whenever we all get back together face to face and take a group of people out and explain how to use this book in the field. I actually like to do it this way that we've done it this morning, because what happens is when you take a group of people out with a book like this, 2 people in the front are going to see what's going on, and everyone else is going to gradually break away because they can't see what's going on. So, but again, in the future, if you want to do a face-to-face, I'd be more than happy to do it.
Great. Well, once again, Dr. McLaren, thank you so much for taking the time to come out and present for us. He's here at the Woodford County Extension Office actually to make sure we had good internet connection. So thank you for taking the time, and that was such an excellent presentation.
I'm more than happy to do it. It was fun.